I thought that Zero News was a good name for the focus of this YouTube video moving forward. And so here's the news in overview, and then it'll be given in more detail over the next few pages. The FCAI, the Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries, made some changes to its board members. Toyota was in the chairperson position, but this has changed, and now Tesla has a seat at the table. At almost the same time, the FCAI has been accused of attempting to lobby government to weaken vehicle pollution limits and minimize the impacts of EVs, positive impacts of EVs. It would be great to have a seat on that board. It's just an accusation, so I don't know if it's true or not. New South Wales and Victorian governments are offering big discounts for users to change from off-peak hot water systems to heat pumps. In New South Wales, this extends to solar panel heaters as well. And finally, today I look at a report by Net Zero Australia, talking about what net zero might look like in the next 30 or 40 years. The link to that report is in the description of the video. Toyota's Matthew Kalachor is no longer chairperson, replaced by Vinesh Bindi from, he's the MD from Mazda. Tesla's country manager, Tom Drew, joins the board. Given the FCAI's reported lobbying against the benefits of EVs and attempting to weaken vehicle pollution limits, I would guess that board meetings might be a bit fiery. I think I talked about this one on the previous page, so I'll just put this image in for people to have a look at. You can pause the video if you want to see more, and I'll put a link to this one in the description of the video. Hot water pumps are reported to be 4 to 5 times more efficient, and so 4 to 5 times cheaper to run. This leads to a great reduction in electricity required and potentially much less CO2 being produced. Like all government programs, this one might attract some dubious performers. I think pink bats and solar panels. Do some research before you do it. So essentially, the program gives a certain value back for the cost of the heat pump, and a lot of the companies are saying we will do pretty much everything for $33. And to do that, they've got to have a relatively cheap heat pump, and they've got to smash out the installs really quickly. Your mileage may vary. One of my friends has one now and really happy. So you don't have to spend just $33. You can get a slightly better heat pump and spend a little bit more, I think. This report seems to be well researched and stresses its impartiality from its sponsors. I have placed a link to the report in the description. There's several reports that you would need to download if you want to see everything. It makes sense that the grid will need to grow. As a simple example, charging EVs, not just cars but trucks too, requires more electricity available in more places. This leads to the second point, less petrol and diesel means more electricity is needed. So it certainly makes sense that the grid needs to grow. I know at the moment there's some solar panel stations, if you like, if that's the right word, that can't connect to the grid because the grid's not capable of taking it. So there's a lot of work to be done there. I think it is always important to see the big picture. And Australia cannot afford to lose $200 billion in exports. And so the talk about green and blue hydrogen, as well as exporting electricity via a big cable up to Singapore, are options that can replace some of that export revenue. The headlines in the media after this report was released were all about the massive increase in gas. The reality of the message was more plants used increasingly less often, maybe 1 or 2%. So the media kind of got it a little bit alarmist and got it a little bit wrong. So hopefully when you read the full reports, if you do, you'll see that kind of message as well. Always happy to get some comments if you think I've misread it. This slide's around the idea of exporting hydrogen to other parts of the world. There's two kinds of hydrogen we think about when we talk about a CO2 future. And the first of those is green hydrogen. It's produced from renewables. And the second is blue hydrogen, which is produced from fossil fuels in conjunction with some sort of carbon capture process. I think exporting hydrogen helps the world, and I hate hearing that we are just a couple of % of the problem, and what our customers do with our coal or gas that we sell them is not our fault. I really hate that, and this is a possibility for us to do good in the world, and so let's do some good. I'm just going to talk about a couple of these points here. The first one's pumped hydro, and especially the Snowy 2.0 project. It really makes me wonder how much of a contribution pumped hydro will be. Snowy 2.0 has been delayed and costs have blown out. I'll also cover point 4 on carbon capture soon. And then I guess point 7 is around nuclear as not being an option. I've always thought that by the time the nuclear plant was built, it would be too late. Anyway, there are some initiatives around much smaller nuclear power plants that could be almost not quite like a suitcase, but could easily be delivered and installed. So there's probably some possibilities, but this report's certainly saying that that's not an option. Okay, this slide from the report, not the best slide I've ever seen, to be honest, but that's okay. This slide from the report is showing their estimation of where the domestic electricity will be stored. And the green part is the batteries. That purple part is new pumped hydropower coming from somewhere. And the bottom part is existing plus Snowy 2.0. So as I mentioned, Snowy 2.0 is now saying 2028 before they'll start producing stuff. And I can't help wondering whether if we just spent that money in batteries instead of in all the money we've already pumped into Snowy 2.0, how much better would be. Also, those charts are probably out of date because if Snowy Hydro is not starting to 2028, then the charts look like they're grabbing stuff around 2025, 2026. So it's probably out of date. This slide's from the IEA, and it indicates that there'll be 220 metric tons of carbon dioxide being captured a year from 200 new facilities. Let me just move forward to the very next slide. In a timeline. And so here's the timeline. There is a breakdown of essentially what it's saying here is that dark green, the ones down the bottom are already existing. There's a couple under construction, production. The ones that are in advanced dark green is just in concept, like the feasibility stage, and then there's concept of feasibility. Lighter green, all that happens. 220. The big yellow box at the end there is how much would be needed, and that big yellow box there at 2030. That's what you can see there is a breakdown of how that's likely to happen. So what's happening in Australia? Dark green, the report's saying. In Australia, in that report, they're suggesting that by 2060, Australia will be capturing around 200 metric tons by, and under certain scenarios, they would need that to be 1,000 metric tons. So when you think that the whole world's doing 200 by 2030, metric tons by 2060, 200 facilities, it seems like a big ask. It sounds a little bit unlikely. Quick look at that. Hey everybody, if you've enjoyed this one, please like the video and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber so that you can see the next one that I produce. Thanks very much.